All right, I saw several people struggling with making a second log on the river for Frogger to ride. So I'm just going to do a quick screencast to show how that works. It's actually pretty simple. So I already created a new costume for my log. You can see, I need to create a new costume for my log. So this one is too big. So I'm going to paint a new costume. I'm going to make it the same color or about the same color. And let's make sure it's centered. So there we go, a new costume for my log. So let's just make sure that my logs still work. Great, and they're a little bit too close to each other. So I'm actually going to change this to 4 and see what that looks like. So the first one waits 0 seconds, and then each one after that waits 4 seconds. And that looks pretty good. So I have my logs a little too high up on the river, so I'm going to change this to -100. And great, so that looks perfect. So now the thing that makes the logs wait is this, makes them wait and space themselves out at the beginning when we create our clones, is this river weight variable. And that wasn't a very good name to give it because I'm going to have 2 logs on the river. So I'm actually going to delete this river weight variable. And let's make a new variable for this sprite only. And let's call it log1 weight. And let's just use that where we used to be using river weight. And make sure it still works. Great. So I am going to duplicate the log just like you would normally. The thing that I'm going to change is I don't need log1 weight. I'm not going to use the log1 weight. I'm going to use log2 weight. And it's going to be a local variable. And that's really the main difference. The other thing that I'm going to change is I want the other logs to go in the other direction. So instead of going to +280, I'm going to send this one to -280. And I'm going to have it be a little higher up. I'm going to have it be at the top of the river. So I'm going to say that's 120. And so in this forever, now instead of being less than -270, I'm going to say when it gets to the other side of the screen, so when its x position is greater than +270, then I want it to, I want it to go to the left side of the screen, so to -280. And instead of being able to move river speed, I want it to move the opposite direction of the river in this case. So I'm going to have it move river speed times -1 to just have it go the opposite direction. So let's see what this looks like. So now I have logs moving across the screen in both directions. And so you can see this is pretty simple. The key part is the log2 weight versus log1 weight variables. And this is, you can dress up the costumes a little more, and you could make the river bigger if you wanted to. But this is all you really need to make 2 logs. All right, now there's one more thing we need if we're going to have 2 logs, and Frogger needs to be able to ride both. So I'm going to duplicate the same functionality we have to allow Frogger to ride Logger, but this is going to allow Frogger to ride Logger too. And so now, instead of setting Frogger's lateral speed to lateral speed plus river speed, we need to do the same thing we did before, which is reverse the river speed times -1. So let's see how that looks. And I think we're going to have a hard time here because it will be possible to touch both logs at once. So let's see if I can avoid that. So if I ride one log, yeah, it's going to be hard to touch. Whoops, I died. One log. But not the other. So I have a, oh, and the other thing I need to change is my logic for dying. So here I have logic for if not touching logger, and I need to add an or there, don't I? So if Frogger is touching the river and not touching logger or touching logger 2, then Frogger should die. And in this case, actually, I don't need to change much for the riverbank because it's about if Frogger is touching the riverbank and not one of the lily pads. So let's test that. So we have Frogger. Now this would be much simpler if I had a better costume for Frogger or fixed the size of my river. So maybe I should just go ahead and do that. And if you're still touching the river and you're not touching logger 2 or logger 1. There we go. Oh, I touched the riverbank. So I'm having some trouble with this because my river is just not wide enough. So let's just make my river a little bigger. Let's edit this costume. And I'm going to get the color that I want, and I'm just going to expand the size of my river a little bit. And all I'm doing is dragging overlapping blocks of the same color. So there, now my river is a little bigger. So let's give my logs a little more room. So I'm going to lower this one to 85. And let's just see how that looks to start. So I think this river is going to be a little bit too big. But 85 is probably about, it's probably a little close. So 90 is probably about right. Actually, let's leave it at 85 and let's lower the other one 5 pixels. So let's set that to 85 and let's set this to 115. That looks pretty good. So I just made my river a little bit too big. So let's edit it again. And let's just go ahead and erase a chunk of my river. Maybe now the bank looks a little more rivery anyway. Let's see how that looks. That's not quite perfect, but let's just prove our point. So I'm going to ride this log. And then I'm going to hop onto this one and ride it. Oh, I hit the riverbank. So that's pretty good. You can play with the size of your logs and the size of your river, but that is the basic idea. So adding the logger or logger 2 here, and if touching logger 2, you need to be able to change your lateral speed. So there you go.